The war had ended, but the silence that followed was not peaceful. It was heavy. Thick clouds of smoke still rose from broken buildings, and the air smelled like dust and fire. Commander Ethan Ward stepped carefully through the ruins of the alien village, his boots crunching on glass and ash. The Earth Alliance had won this battle, but it didn't feel like a victory. He looked around at the burned homes, the fallen statues, and the quiet streets. Nothing moved, except for one small sound, a soft cry. Ethan paused and turned toward the sound. It came from behind a half-destroyed wall. His rifle stayed ready. As he approached, but when he looked over the edge, he saw her. A small alien girl, no more than 6 or 7 years old, sat with her arms wrapped around her knees. Her skin was light blue and her eyes were big and silver. She had a cut on her forehead, but she didn't notice it. She was shaking, scared, and alone. Ethan slowly knelt down. He removed his helmet, letting her see his face. "Hey, it's okay. I'm not here to hurt you." The girl looked up, her eyes full of tears. She didn't run. She didn't speak. She just stared. Ethan reached into his bag and pulled out a small piece of chocolate. "You hungry?" he asked, offering it. The girl took it slowly, then nodded. They sat together for a few minutes without speaking. The village around them was quiet. No other survivors, just the two of them. Ethan didn't know what to say. He had seen too much death, too much pain. But this girl, this tiny child who had lost everything, somehow broke through his tired heart. "What's your name?" he asked. She finally spoke, her voice soft and strange. "Sayalari." "That's a beautiful name," Ethan said, forcing a smile. "I'm Ethan, and I promise. I'll make sure you're safe." She looked at him again, like she was trying to believe him. Ethan looked up at the sky where Earth warships hovered in the distance. "One day, when you grow up, if you ever need help, just find me. I'll come. I promise." The girl stared at him with wide eyes, then slowly nodded. Ethan stood, looked down at her one more time, and tapped the small communication chip he gave her. "This will connect to me. Keep it safe." A few hours later, Earth Alliance ships arrived. They took the girl to safety. Ethan never saw her again. The war ended, the soldiers returned home, and life moved on. The promise he made was real in that moment, but over the years even Ethan began to wonder if Sayalari was just a dream. 20 years passed. Now Ethan Ward was no longer a commander. He lived quietly on the edge of Earth's outer colony. He spent his time fixing old machines and teaching young cadets how to survive without starting wars. He thought his days of battle were over, but then, one quiet morning, everything changed. It started with a strange signal, a deep voice over the comms saying only this: "Ethan Ward, she is here." Ethan sat up straight. "What?" The signal repeated. "She is here, and she remembers." Before he could ask more, the sky above turned dark. A ship unlike any Ethan had seen hovered over the colony. It was smooth and silver, shaped like a bird of fire. Everyone stared at it, confused and afraid. The military scrambled, weapons powered up, but the ship sent one message: "We seek only Ethan Ward." The ship landed. From it stepped a tall, graceful figure in glowing armor. Her skin was still light blue, her silver eyes now filled with strength. But behind that strength, Ethan saw something else: recognition. She spoke one word: promise. Ethan felt his breath stop. It was her, Sayalari. No one understood. Soldiers aimed their weapons, ready for a fight. But Ethan raised his hand. "Stand down." He walked slowly toward her, unsure what to say. "You came back," he whispered. "You said you would come when I needed you," she replied. "Now I need you." Ethan looked into her eyes. They were not the eyes of a scared child anymore. They were the eyes of someone who had seen things, suffered things, and survived. Just like him. "What's happening?" he asked. Sailari looked up at the sky, where something darker than any ship seemed to be coming closer. Still too far to see, but close enough to feel. "They're coming," she said softly. "And this time, even gods are afraid." Ethan didn't know who they were yet, but he knew one thing. He had made a promise. And now, the time had come to keep it. The sky above the colony stayed dark, even though it was daytime. Ethan Ward stood in the middle of the landing field, his eyes locked with Sailari's. She hadn't blinked once. Behind her, her ship stood like a silent guardian, unmarked, powerful, and not of any known alien design. Ethan felt the cold breeze from its open ramp, like the wind itself feared what was coming. "You need me?" Ethan finally asked. Sailari nodded slowly. "Not just you. I need your people, your courage, your madness. Only humans can fight what's coming." Ethan shook his head. "Why us? There are hundreds of alien races, some with bigger fleets, smarter weapons. Why humans?" Sailari walked toward him, every step silent and graceful. "Because you are the only species that never stops fighting. Even when all hope is gone. Even when it makes no sense. You fight. And that's what we need." He studied her face. It was older now, sharper. She wore the armor of a warrior, not a child. But he could still see that small girl sitting in the ruins, scared and alone. Now, she was the one asking for help. Ethan turned to the Earth Command officer nearby. "Tell the High Council I'm boarding that ship." "But sir, we don't even know who she really is," the officer said. "I do," Ethan replied. "And if she's asking for help, we're already out of time." As Ethan stepped inside the alien ship, the air changed. It was warm and smelled like something ancient, like the air inside a tomb. The walls glowed softly with symbols he didn't understand. Sailari followed him. "We're going to the edge of known space," she said. "There's a system no map shows. Not anymore." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "You mean one of the lost systems? From before the galactic collapse?" She nodded. "Before the gods buried them?" Ethan didn't like that word. "Gods. You keep saying gods," he said. "Who are they, really?" Sailari looked at him with eyes that no longer belonged to someone young. "They're not gods in the way you think. Not creators, not protectors. They are destroyers. They erase species. They feed on stars. And now, they're awake again." The ship began to move, lifting into the sky, cutting through the clouds, and vanishing into space without a sound. It didn't jump through normal warp lanes. It moved in silence, like a ghost sliding through the cracks of reality. Ethan sat in the control room beside Sailari. The stars outside seemed wrong, too sharp, too close, like they were being watched. He turned to her. "Why now? Why come back now?" Sailari didn't answer at first. Then she opened her hand and showed him something small, the same tiny communicator chip he had given her all those years ago. "I kept it," she said softly. "It never stopped working, even when everything else fell apart." Ethan took it, stunned. "This thing, it's older than most of Earth's satellites now. It's a symbol," she said, "of what you are, of what humans are." He nodded slowly, remembering the day he gave it to her, thinking he might never see her again. The ship came out of its strange flight, and what Ethan saw outside froze his blood. In the middle of space floated a broken planet. It had once been green, full of cities and oceans. Now it was hollow. Something had burned it from the inside out. The pieces still drifted together like a graveyard trying to hold itself. "What happened here?" Ethan asked. Sailari stared out the window. "This was my second home. After I left Earth's protection, my people took me here. We lived in peace. Until the gods came." Ethan leaned forward. And they did. This? She nodded. They sent one of their scouts. Just one. It hollowed. The core, melted the oceans, and left the bones behind. Then it moved on. That was only a test. Ethan stood, walking closer to the window. And now they're sending the real force? Sayalari turned to him. Yes. Unless we stop them. Ethan thought about the leaders back on Earth. Slow to act, always waiting for proof. There was no time for waiting now. The enemy was coming, and Earth didn't even know what was knocking at their door. What's the plan? He asked. Sayalari looked at him with something close to hope. You're going to help me wake them. Wake who? The other humans. The ones who left Earth long ago. The ones your history forgot. The ones even the gods fear. Ethan's eyes widened. That's just a myth. The lost clans were never real. They are real, Sayalari said. And if we don't find them, this galaxy dies screaming. The stars outside the ship started to change. They no longer looked like the stars Ethan knew. They twisted, moved, and some of them pulsed like eyes. The space around them felt alive, like it was watching. Ethan tightened the strap on his belt and stood behind Sayalari. Are we close? He asked. She nodded. Almost. This path is hidden to normal minds. That's why the gods never wiped them out completely. Ethan looked out again. Them? The lost clans, Sayalari said. The humans who left Earth during the early wars when your kind was still fighting over borders and flags. Some wanted to escape the chaos. Others wanted to grow stronger, far from Earth's laws. They vanished into deep space and changed. He frowned. We never found proof they were real. You never looked in the right places, she said. They left clues, but only for those who carry the old codes. Ethan looked down at the small chip in his hand, the one he gave her when she was a child. Now he realized it was more than a memory. It was a key. The ship slowed. Before them was a black cloud, not like a normal space cloud. This one didn't reflect light. It swallowed it. And at the center of it, a giant metal ring floated, turning slowly in the dark. It had no power source Ethan could see. No guards. No welcome. This is a gate, Sayalari whispered. And it's sleeping. Ethan stepped closer. The ring had strange markings, but something in him felt familiar. His skin tingled. The air inside the ship grew thick. Then, without touching anything, the ring began to glow. Lines of red light sparked across its surface, and the middle opened. With a sound like cracking bones, a hole tore open in space, and inside, Ethan could see a world, a hidden planet, covered in towers, rings of orbiting stations, ships bigger than anything he'd ever seen, and all of it human. That's impossible, he breathed. Sayalari smiled, faintly. No, that's your forgotten family. They never stopped evolving. They never forgot Earth. They just waited. The ship moved through the gate. The feeling in Ethan's chest grew heavier. His body didn't want to go forward, but his mind needed to see more. Inside the system, everything was silent. No radio chatter, no lights blinking from towers. Just motionless defense lines and dark cruisers. But as soon as they passed the second moon, alarms went off on the ship. They see us, Sayalari said. They're deciding whether we live. That's comforting, Ethan muttered. A sudden voice boomed through the ship's speakers. It was deep, not human exactly, but close. Identify. Sayalari stepped forward. I come in peace. I bring an Earthborn. He carries the code of first promise. Silence. Then a strange hum echoed across space. The massive ships began to light, up one by one. Their weapons powered on, but they didn't fire. Instead, their systems started to speak to Ethan's chip. It responded with green signals pulsing like a heartbeat. "Did it work?" Ethan asked. The ship jolted. A beam of light scanned the interior, passing over Ethan's body. When it hit the chip, the signal turned gold. Then the voice returned. This time, clearer. "Earth's blood returns. Open the path." In the distance, a larger ship separated from the others. It looked more like a moving city than a warship. It drifted toward them, silent, smooth, and full of secrets. As it came closer, Ethan could see humans standing in the windows, tall, armored, different from Earth humans. Their eyes glowed faintly, and their armor looked like it had grown from metal itself. "They've evolved," Ethan whispered. "They're not just survivors. They're something more." The large ship opened its hangar. Sayalari guided their small craft inside. The moment they landed, the air shifted again. This time it felt like the weight of history pressing down. A group of armored humans stood waiting. One stepped forward. He was older, tall, and his armor had the mark of a burning star on it. "You carry the chip," the man said to Ethan. Ethan nodded. "Then speak your request," the man said. Ethan looked at him. "The gods are awake. They destroyed Sayalari's world. They're heading for the rest of us. We need help." The man didn't blink. He turned to the others. "It begins again." Then he looked back at Ethan. "We swore never to return, but Earth's promise was made in blood. We will honor it, even if it ends us." Ethan felt cold. The war hadn't started yet, but something inside told him. They had already crossed the point of no return. Ethan followed the tall, armored humans through the great hall of the starship. The place didn't look like any Earth ship he had seen. The walls were alive with faint lights, like veins under skin. The floor pulsed under his boots. It felt like the ship was breathing. Sayalari stayed close behind him. Her eyes didn't stop moving. She looked nervous now, not like before. Ethan noticed. "You okay?" he whispered. She nodded, but her voice was tight. "They are not the same anymore. These humans, they've been changed by time, war, and silence. They kept their promise, but they also became something else." The leader stopped at a large round door. He placed his hand on a panel, and the door opened with a heavy sound. Inside was a room shaped like a dome, and in the center stood a tall chair. Around it were screens floating in the air, showing battle maps, enemy signals, and Earth. A woman stood in front of the chair. Her armor was black, but soft-looking. Her eyes were cold but sharp. She looked at Ethan like she already knew him. "So," she said, "you brought us the message." Ethan stepped forward. "Yes, the gods have returned. They're destroying colonies. They killed Sayalari's people. They're heading for the core worlds. Earth is next." The woman didn't blink. "And Earth sent you? Just you?" Ethan shook his head. "Earth doesn't even believe the gods are real. They think it's just alien wars. But I saw it with my own eyes. Sayalari, too." The woman turned to look at Sayalari. "You are Vahrin-born. I can smell the loss on you." Sayalari bowed her head. "They burned everything." The woman nodded. "Then war is already here." The room grew quiet. Ethan stepped forward again. "Will you help us?" The woman's eyes locked on him. "We never forgot Earth, but Earth forgot us. We became ghosts in your stories. Now you ask the ghosts to rise again?" Ethan swallowed hard. "We're out of options, out of time. We need you." The woman looked at the screen. "Then let me show you something." She waved her hand. A new image appeared. A star system. Ethan didn't recognize it at first. Then he saw the fire. Whole planets were burning, ships destroyed, civilian transports torn apart, and at the center of it all, a huge ship. Not a god's ship. Something worse. "That's not them," Ethan whispered. "No, the woman said. That's what they built while we slept. It's not a god. It's a machine controlled by something older. We call it the silence core. It drains thought, memory, time. Once it locks on a system, nothing escapes, not even history. Ethan stared at the image. How do you fight something like that? The woman looked at him, serious. You don't fight it alone. Then she stepped down from the command chair. We've waited centuries for a reason to rise. You've given us one. The old clans will return, but this time we won't hide in shadows. She looked at the leader beside her and gave a single nod. He pressed a glowing stone into the wall. Moments later, alarms began to ring throughout the ship. Outside, Ethan saw what he thought was a moon begin to open. It wasn't a moon. It was a warship. Massive engines powered up. Hidden fleets uncloaked. Ships bigger than cities turned their weapons toward the stars. This is the Phoenix Armada, the woman said. Last time, they destroyed our world. This time, we burn theirs. Ethan's breath caught. It was happening. War, real war, was about to begin. Suddenly, one of the screens flashed red. The woman stepped forward. What is it? Signal. From the outer edge, the guard said. Unknown ship, approaching fast. The image zoomed in. Ethan froze. It was one of the gods' ships. Salari gasped. How did they find us? The woman looked at Ethan. Because you led them here. He turned to her, confused. What? I didn't. But then he remembered. The chip. It had been with him all this time. What if the gods had marked it without him knowing? What if this was their plan? The screen showed the enemy ship powering up. It was alone but not afraid. It was testing them. The woman turned to her crew. Launch warning strike. Let them feel the fire. One of the giant city ships opened. A single pulse shot out, bright, sharp, and silent. It hit the enemy, ship dead center. For a moment, everything paused. Then, the god ship vanished. Ethan stared. Did we destroy it? No, the woman said coldly. It ran. The others in the room remained quiet. Then she said, Prepare all fleets. We launch within the hour. She looked at Ethan once more. You wanted our help, child of Earth. Now you have it. But once we rise, we don't stop, not until the gods fall. The stars outside the warship twisted as the Phoenix Armada jumped into hyperspace. Ethan stood near a wide window, watching the stars stretch into lines, then blur into nothing. His heart beat faster with every passing second. They were really going to war. Not just with soldiers or guns, but with something bigger, something ancient, something terrifying. Behind him, Salari stood quietly. She was no longer the nervous girl who had arrived on Earth. She now wore armor with markings. He didn't understand. Symbols of her people, of what was lost. Her eyes had changed too, calmer but colder. She was ready to fight. They're afraid, she said quietly. Who? Ethan asked, turning to her. The gods, she replied. They remember what the humans did before, and now they know. The humans are back. The door to the bridge opened, and the armored commander from earlier entered. He nodded once to Ethan, then turned to Salari. The High Strategist requests your presence, both of you. They followed the commander down a corridor lined with glowing blue veins in the walls. The warship felt more alive than any ship Ethan had ever seen. As they walked, they passed other humans, tall, silent, their faces hidden under helmets. Some gave Ethan curious looks, most ignored him, but all of them moved with purpose. In the command chamber, the High Strategist stood before a large star map. Her hand moved slowly, marking places Ethan didn't know. She turned as they entered. We've located the enemy fleet, she said without introduction. They are gathering near the broken spiral. 27 systems under siege. Civilians are being taken. Planets drained. Drained? Ethan asked. They take more than life, the strategist explained. They take memory, time, soul. Once they touch a place, it forgets itself. History fades, stars dim. That's why we stopped fighting long ago. We couldn't afford to lose who we were. Sayalari stepped forward. But now, you fight again. The strategist nodded. Because of you, because of the promise. She turned to Ethan. You were just a boy when you made it. You probably don't remember. But you said you'd protect her. You said if the gods came again, you'd stand in their way. Ethan felt his throat tighten. He did remember. Barely. A little alien girl crying in the ruins. Him holding her hand, saying he'd keep her safe. It was just words. A child's promise. But to her, it had been everything. I didn't know it would matter, he said quietly. The strategist looked at him with calm eyes. Promises are not measured by how big you are when you make them. They are measured by how much they cost when it's time to keep them. Sayalari smiled faintly. You kept yours. Ethan looked at her, stunned. No, I didn't do anything. She shook her head. You came. You brought them. That was enough. The alarms suddenly blared. The walls flashed red. The ship shook for a moment, then steadied. The commander ran to a panel. Contact. Enemy. Scouts. They've found us again. The strategist's face remained calm. They want to see how strong we are. She turned to her fleet. Then let them look. The ship's systems came alive. Ethan could feel it through the floor. The power was like thunder under his feet. Outside, the fleet began to move. We strike first, the strategist said. Before they finish gathering, we hit their heart. She pointed to a place on the map glowing deep red. That is the Black Cathedral, the god's stronghold. If we burn it, their command breaks. Their fear becomes real. The others nodded. Ethan stared at the spot. It looked small, distant, but it held the key to everything. You're going there? He asked. We all are, the strategist said. You too. Me? Ethan blinked. I'm not a soldier. You don't need to be. You're the reason this started. The symbol. You carry the promise. Ethan felt frozen. He had never meant to be part of this, but now there was no turning back. Sayalari stepped closer. You're not alone. I'll go with you. The strategist nodded once more. Prepare. We launch the final phase at Dawnship. As they left the chamber, Ethan looked back at the star map. So many systems, so many lives. And in the middle of it all, one child's promise, still alive. Outside the ship, space darkened. The fleet moved like a shadow across the stars. Lights powered up, weapons locked. The humans had returned, not for revenge, not for glory, but for a promise. And this time, they wouldn't stop until the gods fell. The fleet moved through silent space like a storm with no sound. Thousands of warships, shaped like arrows and beasts and birds of prey, all pointed at one place, the Black Cathedral. It floated at the edge of a broken star, far from any light. The gods had built it in darkness for a reason. Nothing inside it belonged in the light. Ethan stood on the deck of the command ship, armored now, though he still felt strange wearing it. He wasn't a warrior. He was just a human who made a promise as a boy. But around him, warriors bowed when he passed. Some nodded, some stared in silence. He was the promise bearer. That was what they called him now. Beside him, Sayalari wore her own armor, sleek and glowing softly with the color of her old world. She looked taller, more focused, but her eyes were the same. She had waited all her life for this day. The commander entered the room. 5 minutes to entry, he said. The cathedral's defenses are waking up. Let them wake, Sayalari replied. They'll sleep forever soon. Ethan glanced at her. Are you sure we can win? She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "No, but if we lose together." That was enough. As the ship neared the Black Cathedral, everything grew colder, not just in temperature, but in feeling. The stars faded behind thick, dark clouds that weren't clouds at all, just shadows of old battles frozen in time. They passed broken ships, twisted metal, and frozen bodies that drifted like forgotten ghosts. The gods had erased entire fleets. Here before, but not this one. "This is not a battle," the strategist said over the comms. "This is a message. Burn it into their bones. Humanity remembers. And we never forget a promise." The first strike came fast. A beam of purple fire shot from the cathedral, striking one of the human ships. It vanished in a flash of light. "Shields up!" shouted the bridge commander. Ethan held onto a rail as the ship shook violently. The cathedral wasn't just a building. It was alive. Its towers moved, shifted, and turned toward the human fleet like giant weapons. Eyes opened across its walls, glowing red, watching everything. The fleet returned fire. Missiles, plasma, railguns, and strange ancient weapons Ethan didn't recognize all roared at once. Space lit up like a second sun. The cathedral screamed. Not just a sound, but in everyone's minds. A deep, angry voice that whispered 1,000 curses. Then the first breach team launched. Ethan and Sayalari stood near the dropship as it prepared to enter the enemy structure. Around them, warriors checked weapons, armor, and each other. The door opened. The air smelled wrong, like metal and dust and death. The ship dropped fast. When they landed, the cathedral's interior was worse than Ethan expected. Walls moved, like skin. Lights flickered. The floor pulsed. Strange symbols shifted on every surface. It wasn't a place built by minds like theirs. It was a prison for things that should not exist. They fought through halls filled with defenders. Creatures, made of bone and shadow. Machines that screamed. Rooms that twisted time. Every corner was a nightmare. But the humans kept going, and Ethan was right there with them. Once, he would have frozen. Run. But now, he followed Sayalari. He held a weapon. He fired when she did. He kept moving, because he had made a promise. Last, they reached the heart of the cathedral, a chamber of glass and darkness. A throne floated above it, and on that throne sat one of the gods. Not gold and light like old stories said. This god looked thin, pale, and sick with power. Its eyes were like holes in space. "So," it whispered, "the boy returns." Ethan stepped forward, even as the floor cracked under his feet. "You remember me?" he asked. The god didn't smile. "I remember all who dare to speak against us." Sayalari raised her weapon. "You killed my people. They were weak," the god said. "They were innocent," she replied. Then she fired. The throne exploded. The god screamed, rising in the air like smoke, spreading across the chamber. More warriors charged in. Chaos broke out. Ethan fought. Alongside Sayalari, shooting and dodging, until his body ached and his mind was full of fire and fear. But they didn't stop. They reached the final core of the cathedral, a glowing orb of memory and control. It pulsed with the lives it had taken. Ethan stepped forward and placed his hand on it. He thought of the girl he'd met long ago, of the promise, of the kindness he gave without thinking, of the future she deserved, and the orb shattered. The cathedral trembled. Outside, gods screamed, ships began to fall, stars blinked back into existence. The lie was over, the promise had been kept. The Black Cathedral was dying, its walls cracked, bleeding strange black light. The air itself burned. The gods' voices no longer echoed with strength. They screamed now, loud and broken, like glass shattering in endless space. But Ethan and Sayalari weren't done. They stood in the ruined core of the cathedral, surrounded by fallen warriors, cracked weapons, and drifting ash. The glowing orb that once powered the god's throne was gone. destroyed. But something else had awakened. A sound began to rise, low, heavy, not mechanical, not godlike. It was ancient, deeper than thought, older than stars. "What is that?" Ethan asked, gripping his weapon tighter. Sailari stepped beside him, eyes wide. "It's not a god," she whispered. "It's what the gods were afraid of." The floor shook. A rift opened. From the rift rose something massive. Not flesh, not machine. It had no face, no voice, just shape, just pressure, like the feeling of falling in a dream. It looked at them without eyes, the last defense of the gods. Sailari turned to Ethan. "They kept this locked here. They didn't build this cathedral to rule. They built it to hide this." "But we woke it up," Ethan said slowly. He wasn't angry, he wasn't scared, he was calm, clear. Sailari nodded. "Yes, we brought fire to the gods, and found what they feared most." The creature moved without moving. Reality twisted around it. Some soldiers screamed. Others dropped to their knees, unable to move. Ships outside the cathedral began to fail, engines going dark. The stars bent. It was unmaking everything. But Ethan stepped forward. He reached into his pocket, and he pulled out something small. It was a necklace, a simple one. Handmade, old, rusted. He had kept it since that day when a little alien girl gave it to him before leaving Earth. Sailari looked at it and gasped. Her eyes filled with memory. "Do you remember what you said when you gave me this?" Ethan asked her quietly. She nodded. "It was to protect you." Ethan held it up, and for the first time, the creature stopped. It did not attack. The necklace glowed faintly, soft and warm in the cold dark. The creature bent slowly toward it, toward Ethan, toward the promise. "It recognizes it," Sailari whispered. "It knows what that means. A promise made in innocence, in peace. A bridge between two species, a symbol older than war, more powerful than rage." Ethan held it higher. "I made a promise to protect her, and now I make one more. I will protect everyone like her. No more cages, no more gods." The creature paused. Then it began to dissolve, slowly, quietly. The pressure lifted. The stars came back. The warship steadied. The cathedral crumbled, but now it fell like dust, not in rage, but in silence. It was over, truly over. Back on the bow. "Command ship." The fleet watched the collapse from a distance. A light spread through the void where the cathedral had been. Not fire, not destruction, just freedom. Ethan stood with Sailari on the deck, watching it fade. "You saved us," she said. "No," Ethan replied. "We saved each other." She looked at him. "You kept your promise." He smiled. "So did you." Later, when they returned to the council worlds, things were different. The gods were gone, their thrones empty. The galaxy watched as a girl who once hid under a table now stood before entire civilizations, proud and strong, beside the human who once gave her kindness. They rebuilt, not just buildings or systems, but trust. All across the stars, species began to meet without fear. Children were taught about promises, not rules, not fear, but simple, powerful promises. And the tale of the human boy and the little alien girl became more than just a story. It became history.